This week on X-Trex, snake cave pains, bombs on trains. These episodes sure left a lot to explain.
It's the Rule Breaker episode.
Welcome to X-Trex, a podcast where we introduce each other to our fandoms one episode at a time. I'm your host, Erin Cline, an X-Files enthusiastic apologist.
And I'm your other host, Stella Cheeks, a forever slut for Star Trek the original series. Each podcast, we pick 2 episodes that fit a cinematic theme, watch them together, and then record our feelings.
Our theme this week is Rule Breaker.
Today we're watching the Season 2 classic, The Apple, i.e. the one where Kirk basically says a complete fuck you to the Prime Directive because he disagreed with this planet's whole philosophy.
And for the X-Files, we're watching 2 mythology episodes, Season 3's Nisei and 731. These are the episodes where Scully autopsies an alien while Mulder rides a train. Derogatory.
Did she do an autopsy?
Well, I guess she didn't really. She chased an autopsy.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. Scully chased an autopsy and Mulder jumped on a train. Derogatory.
Are you ready for a dig it in there, Mr. Spock?
I am.
Well, I just might stake out a claim and settle down here, Jim.
It is spectacular, isn't it?
It's a shame after and true.
All right, now for a quick-ish episode summary. The triumvirate, Chekhov, and a bevy of red shirts arrive on the paradise planet of Gamma Triangula 6. The planet is rich with natural resources, so naturally Starfleet, a quote-unquote peaceful colonizer, wants to get a piece of that action. Of course, this is space, so paradise means endless danger. A fact that they soon find out when one of the aforementioned red shirts dies violently by poisonous plant darts. And then they find rocks that are bombs. And then Spock gets shot with plant darts, but thankfully doesn't die, bless that Vulcan biology. And wouldn't you know it, they can't escape paradise either because a bizarre energy field is sucking the life out of the Enterprise. And also there's a lightning storm that kills a bunch of the crew. And remember those rocks? Oops, more dead red shirts. Did somebody say this was a paradise planet? Bones, you jinxed us. Since they are stuck on the planet, they switch into investigation mode and make their way towards a primitive village. On their way towards the village, they realize they are being tracked and capture a bright orange man named Akuda. He says he's the chief of the feeders of Val. I don't know, sounds like a cult. Upon questioning, the crew learn that the small antennae on Akuda's head allows him to communicate with Val. Well, they learn that after Kirk punches him in the face. Akuda is a simple man, so he leads them straight to their leader. Turns out Val is a giant dragon rock mountain that the whole village worships. A dragon rock mountain, complete with an inaccessible underground complex, one that they can't get into because of a dang force field. While Val is clearly technologically advanced, the people of the village are not. In fact, Val's rules keep them in an immortal primitive state where they don't need to learn, grow, or procreate because Val provides. Well, he provides as long as they feed him rock bombs. Kirk is pissed because his crew is dying, the Enterprise is losing power, and they are stuck on this hell of a planet. Now, technically, according to the Prime Directive, the Enterprise crew should all just lie down and die, but that the hell is not going to happen. Spock tries to argue that their society works, so maybe they should leave it alone, but Kirk is like, it doesn't work for me. Meanwhile, Chekhov and his beau, Landon, cause a kerfuffle in the village because a young village couple decide to kiss after watching these horn dogs on duty kiss. Puritanical Val is like, I do not want my toys to kiss, and orders the death of the Enterprise crew. But the crew ain't no slouches, so they beat the hell out of the villagers like they are babies. Having overpowered the villagers, Kirk is like, now this is the time, and ruins Val's dinner time, weakening its power and allowing Scotty to phaser Overlord Val, freeing the Enterprise from the tractor beam. Of course, that means that they have now completely destroyed this planet's entire society. But Kirk assures Akuda that it's okay because now you can experience a normal life, a life that Kirk and Bones approve of. The episode ends with Spock postulating that their actions were the equivalent of the snake driving the villagers from their Garden of Eden. Kirk is like, I'm only one of us here looks like Satan. Ha ha, xenophobia, rule breaking, ruining societies. Nice work, gang. What did you think of this episode?
I really liked it. I was surprised by how much I liked it, actually.
It is one of those iconic Star Trek episodes. It's one that you see screenshotted a lot. Mm-hmm. There are a lot of photo stills from it that you'll see if you just search Star Trek. There's a lot of, especially the beginning before they meet the villagers, there's a lot of interpersonal exchanges that are very popular and used a lot. So, like, it is one of those episodes that's, like, classic. And, you know, it is one of those episodes that people talk about in terms of what it means to be Starfleet officer, and interact with the Prime Directive. It is also one of, I think it might be the first real episode where like a ton of red shirts die, not just like one.
So many.
But
there are also so many out there.
Right.
It doesn't feel like there's usually that many out
this
there.
This is the episode where like the stereotype comes from. Like red shirts die in other episodes too, but this is like the stereotype of they are all gonna die.
Yeah, if you see a red shirt, you should know that they're probably gonna be dead.
Yeah, I mean the only person wearing a red shirt that doesn't die is Landon, but like she gets a speaking role and is like a girl and Chekhov's girlfriend and all of that stuff, but like every other man on that mission dies, and that's kind of like where the trope comes from. I mean it comes from the whole series, but this episode
this specifically
is marked as like, yes, they all die.
Yeah, this is for sure the one that I was like, wow, I don't think I've ever seen so many red shirts die, because like we don't usually see this many people on a landing party either.
Yeah, and this is early season 2. We did talk earlier this season about Spock's brain, and the dilemma is very similar of like, their society works, why are we ruining it? And so, we're ruining it to save our lives. Spock's brain, I feel like they could have, like we talked about it, they could have gotten a different Vulcan. There was a way to save that society. The only way to like save this society was to like let 400 and some people die, really. So I do see Kirk's dilemma, but like technically he shouldn't have done any of that stuff.
Yeah, and it's weird that at the end he's like, you're gonna have freedom, you'll love it. And it's like you're talking to people who have no concept of what that means.
They didn't know what it was to kill. They had to have like a robot teach them how to kill. They didn't know what the consequences of violence were. They didn't know what the touching was. Like they had to watch someone kiss before they even thought to do it.
Yeah, they have no reason to know how to do this stuff.
Yeah.
It's wild. I like too that Bones was like, they could be 20 years old, they could be 200,000 years old. There's like literally no way to tell. And like Bobby was saying while we were watching it, along that much time, it's genetic. Like they truly do not know how to do this stuff. Because I asked at one point when the two Vol people were touching each other, like, how is he not immediately getting a boner? Because it's physical. But Bobby's saying if it's...
You can't ascribe human culture onto a non-human society.
That's true. It's like what I immediately wondered about was the physiology. How do you make it so people don't even think about it?
Well, and Kirk and Bones and everybody, when they're like, we don't have sex, they're like, oh my god, like the worst thing. But like, it's space. There have to exist societies where sex is A, not important culturally, but B, are not important like biologically.
Yeah.
So like, again, this is a classic early Trek. We are ascribing our human values, our Starfleet values to societies that we don't know anything about.
I mean, Spock directly says that too.
Yeah,
at
Spock
one
is
point.
the only one being like, guys, I don't know about that.
I'm taking all the damage, and I still think we should leave them alone.
Yeah.
Like...
Yeah, they didn't even try. I mean, it's one thing if you want to like destroy Val or whatever to free the Enterprise, but then they don't even try to like fix it or whatever. Like they have advanced technology. They could have probably figured some shit out.
Yeah. Also, like, we don't get any fucking explanation about what the fuck that machine was. Like, that's just it.
Yeah, I mean, again, this is like classic early Trek where it's just like, here's what it is. We'll never talk about it again. I think Bobby's going to get more into it because, frankly, I did not do a lot of this research, but there are a lot of additions. Like, there are some episodes where you learn about a planet and they're like, we're never going to talk about that ever again.
Mm-hmm.
Or we'll talk about it passing in one sentence and then, in a book here and there. But I think this is a planet where there's been like a lot written about it and a lot like expounded upon it in the comics and novels, so
it makes a lot of sense. They're kind of like a blank slate once you kill this machine. I did like too, like,
also who built the machine? Like they could, like, I think there are two theories. There's like a theory of like a alien cedar or whatever coming and building it, a la the like Native American episode.
Right.
But there's also a theory of like, maybe their society built it and then just became so reliant on it that they evolved to just like be reliant on this thing that they built.
Yeah, I guess that would make sense. Part of it too, again, would be knowing how old they are, because Akuda's like, it's been here forever.
Yeah, and they're like, we don't make replacements.
Yeah, like he does call it
hilarious
at one point.
to call kids replacements though.
I mean, it makes sense. I love that Kirk was just like, little ones, they grow. Little ones, they grow. And they were like, no idea. It's like the Mariah Carey gift where she's like, I don't know her. Like, that's how they were about children. It was
they don't know so
choice.
much. They're like, I don't know. We don't know.
Yeah.
Violence. We don't know. We know what we know. That's it.
Yeah, it's interesting. That's an interesting idea that their society did build it and then it just existed for so long.
Well, there's like a throwaway line kind of at the end where Kirk says something about like, you know, relying too much on technology. And that is also like a, you know, philosophical thing that like a lot of sci-fi, but Star Trek talks about. There are a couple episodes we've talked about, like the computer that was going to take over captaining the ships or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And then it went haywire, and it's like, yeah, we can't rely on machines to do everything. And that's like, people talk about it during, it's a big point of contention in our society right now, talking about AI and stuff. Like, no, AI shouldn't make movies. People should make movies.
Yeah, for real.
For a multitude of reasons. But like, there is an element of this episode that's like, technology is good, but it's only good to support your natural humanity and your natural human drives to create and grow and build a successful society. It shouldn't hinder those things.
Yeah, and
capitalism, et cetera, et cetera.
Et cetera, et cetera. Yeah, it's... I find the concept of the caves super interesting, and like I like the idea that they're like, we have to free them from being dependent on this technology. They don't explain to them at all as they let them go, like, someone does kind of have to be in charge.
Yeah.
Like, Akuda maybe still is in charge, but he doesn't talk to the god anymore, so does that mean they're like, get the fuck out of here? Like, it's, again, like, the freedom, you're gonna love it a lot. And it's like, no, you do actually have to seed this place a little more than you did.
There is, like, a line where he's like, we'll help you. But it's like, what does that help look like?
Yeah.
What is it? Also, like, again, these are not humans. Obviously, for us... and especially for like Kirk, he talks about this all the time, like having a drive and a passion and wanting to like be creative and have like grow a society together. That's deeply important to humanity, deeply important to Kirk. But it doesn't have to be important to other people. Like having a life where you just like wake up, pick fruit, throw some rocks into a cave, and then vibe. Like what? There's no real reason for them. There's an argument to be made, and Spock tries to make it that, like, there's no reason for them to do anything else. They're immortal. Yeah. They have all of their needs met. They aren't unhappy.
Yeah.
At no point are they being like, I feel really unfulfilled. I really want to touch this person. They're literally, like, laughing and having a great time. Like, and then because the Enterprise shows up, the computer or whatever, the cave, teaches them violence. And Spock says something like, well, I guess they're on the road to humanity because they're killing people now. So nice work, gang.
Yep. I put that down too. Like, oh, okay, great. They had this like paradise. You don't want to teach them how to physically love a person, but you do want to give them violence. And like, well, that's the most American shit I've ever heard in my entire life.
Yeah. Like, it would be one thing if they went into the society that was controlled by... So like if we're comparing it to Spock's brain, they do go into a society where half the population is miserable, right?
Right.
So, like, there could be an argument to be made that the stagnation of that planet has deeply negatively affected at least half of the population. Therefore, it is moral that we help, blah, blah, blah. That's an argument that you could make. I don't know if I agree, whatever. This planet was happy, period. They wanted for nothing. They were not suffering, like... They got curious when they saw somebody kiss, but it's not like they were like, I want to do the touching. They only wanted to do the touching because, like children, they saw somebody do it and they're like, oh, I don't want to do that.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a very interesting episode to have such a strange, like, theoretical question, too. It's, I think maybe that's part of why I enjoyed it, because that's also happening the whole time you're watching it. It's like, okay, but what is happening here?
Yeah, like, inherently you want to side with Kirk and Bones because, like, A, we have those human values, B, those are our boys, but they are at a different angle. They're the villains. They're the bad guys of this episode. The like cave is not the bad guy because the cave doesn't even do anything really. It just says
it shocks Kirk, which means a machine fucked with him and he has to kill it.
Yeah, I mean the cave doesn't do anything bad to the society. Yeah. Like it provides everything. It just says, and who knows? Maybe it says no touching for some kind of reason we don't know. Maybe it's like there existed a time where their immunity can't actually handle it or something. So maybe it's good for, like, we don't know. There are a lot of assumptions made that the choices that Val is making are bad for them, and we don't actually know that because they didn't take any time to learn that. To be fair, like, the Enterprise was on a time crunch. Like they had to like make some choices, but like we don't actually know that the decisions that Val was making for the people of that society were bad.
Yeah. I mean, again, like you said, it's, and as Bone says, it's a stagnation, but like, is it a bad stagnation? Like they don't want for anything. They're not upset. Like, yeah, it's, I agree. I think they are kind of the bad guy. I have so many questions about how the cave got there too. Cause like that also makes me wonder, like, would I feel differently if I knew that this cave actually was put here for a reason that's like not great, but wasn't specifically about them. And then they became whatever.
Oh,
like,
totally.
I just think, yeah.
Maybe Bobby knows some of that stuff, but in the context of this episode, like Kirk and Bones are villains in this episode.
Mm-hmm.
And then like I think the analogy that Spock makes where it's like, yeah, we're the snake in the Garden of Eden. Obviously that is a complex myth, et cetera, et cetera. But if you're just taking it in a black and white way, like, yeah, you came in with outside knowledge, gave it to people who didn't want it, and then ruined their lives.
Yeah. Yep. It's not great. That part's not great about it.
Yeah.
You know what parts are great about this? The lady, ensign, what was her name?
She's a yeoman. She's Yeoman Landon.
Landon, okay. She was incredible. I liked her the whole time. Her hair was complex and beautiful. And I was like, all right, she's got a speaking role because she has a cool wig.
Her hair was complex and stayed that way when she kicked ass, too.
Yeah, exactly. I really liked her. This is, I feel like I say this a lot now, the more I watch it. This was a time I actually really liked Chekhov, even though he was being a weird creep, because it felt appropriate and it felt like good writing for him. Like it just worked. And like I was confused at first that they were actually a couple. But that scene of the two of them together, like she's fantastic. And like I think that she is a great pair with Chekhov because even though he's a weird creep, she makes it work. I just really enjoyed her. I thought that it was nice to see her as an active member of the party also. And like you said, there's a lot of red shirt deaths. I never at any point was like, they're going to kill this lady. 100%. Not ever. And so that was cool to see her as part of that landing party too.
Yeah, it's funny because this episode specifically was one that Anton Yelchin, who played Chekhov in the 2009 Star Trek movies, really used as because in those movies they lean into Chekhov's like horniness a lot. Like they show him like running down the hallway in his like underwear and stuff.
I remember that,
like stride of pride and stuff. And so like and Yelchin does a good job of making Chekhov this like young annoying kid but also really really likable, which I don't think Walter Koenig does a really good job of it. He makes him very young and annoying, but he doesn't make him particularly likable. And I do like that Yelchin used like this kind of episode as like an example of that dichotomy of he's literally a genius. Like he's in Starfleet when he's 17. He's one of the smartest people in Starfleet. He's also 17, so he's a weird little horn dog. And that's like a fun dichotomy.
And he's also Russian, which like at the time is written very specifically, but is not like derogatory towards him like that I've seen. And I liked in this part of the writing I liked about him was this is from Russia, did you know that? And it like really adds,
and that is like a thing that they expound on, but they're like starting because he shows up in season 2 episode 1 and now this is season 2 episode 5, so now they're starting to develop his character. It's
I like it a lot, and you can see the trajectory of it, and it makes me appreciate his character later also, which is nice.
I like Chekhov in the movies. It's just Chekhov in the TV show is rough.
Yeah, I mean, that's the whole thing, right? Like you said, he's 17, and you're seeing this, like, genius who's being, like, a bumbling idiot on the bridge. But you can also see that he is clearly going. He's not fucking leaving off. He's not getting murdered. He's not going to, like, decide not to be on Starfleet. Like, you can tell long-term that character has the trajectory of being Starfleet for life. And, like, this, for some reason, was an episode that made me feel, like, connected to that also.
Yeah, 100%.
I also loved Scotty. No one is going to be surprised that I fucking love Scotty in this episode. He was so goddamn good. I love Scotty as captain. It's the fucking best. Like, I thought it was wonderful to see him totally in control of the situation at all times. And, like, his back and forth with Kirk about, like, when Kirk was like, do this, do this, do this, Scotty's like, done, 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 bitch. I already tried it all. Like, I loved that. I thought it was a great...
working.
Yeah, I thought it was a great example of the two of them as, like, captain hierarchy. The you're fired, you're rehired thing was very good. Like, I thought they did a good job of putting in a lot of quips for something that was like...
This is a pretty quippy episode.
It is a quippy episode, and I really liked that. And I wrote down, too, one of the things I really liked about this and Scotty specifically being in the captain chair is that you really got to see on the bridge people working to make that ship work. Like, panels are open, people are inside of them, there are people running in from the background. Like, I thought it was a very effective way to show a like real danger and a real problem on the ship, and to watch Scotty be so calm and like in it and ready was awesome. I thought that worked as well as the fight where you get to see Landon, I keep forgetting her name, just like straight up chest kick a dude, and like it felt natural. It never felt like anyone was overwhelmed.
All Starfleet officers go through like combat training, and I like when they show that.
Absolutely. I thought this was a great example of there's a problem, an emergency, everyone works together and makes it work. It was just fantastic. I thought every single person in this episode did a good job also, which was really nice.
Yeah. An interesting apocryphal thing that won't mean anything to you, but will mean something to people who watch Star Trek. So this is the first episode and the only TOS episode where they reference the saucer section being able to separate. They wanted to do it. They didn't have the budget. But then in TNG's first episode, so like the first thing back,
I've seen that.
There's like a saucer separation. So it's like one of those like theoretical things where they mentioned it in an episode, and I'm sure it was in books and stuff, but that was like the first time. So like if you're a hardcore Star Trek fan and you're like, oh, there's a new Star Trek show, and then you watch the pilot and then you're like, they're doing the saucer thing.
Yeah,
like
sick.
That would have been a pretty rock and roll moment to be like,
real.
okay, the saucer. And now it's like very tropey for Star Trek.
Yeah.
But I did really like that moment. And then one of my favorite moments in this episode, which also might not mean really anything to you, is that scene where Kirk is eating the apple, and it's like kind of while he's starting to think about like, I'm gonna fuck this planet up. And I just love the like internal continuity of anytime Kirk is eating an apple, shit's about to like
I know that.
crazy.
Yeah, I do know that actually. You know what? But because J.J. Abrams derogatory, they do that in one of those movies,
and they didn't even do it on purpose.
Are you serious?
Yes.
Oh, that's.
They just did it. They were like, "Oh, wouldn't it be funny?" And then like, whatever. It's fine that it fits into the canon, but I think that it is both great that it's in that movie and infuriating. Because
I did not know that.
Several scenes where Shatner Kirk does it. Like the big famous one is in Wrath of Khan, where he's just like eating an apple and is like, "Yeah, I'm gonna fuck some shit up." And I just love that. Like that's what Kirk's. He's just like, I just need a quick break. I just need some brain food. I'm gonna fuck some shit up.
I love it. I thought it was fantastic. And also, we talked about when he talks about Mallory and he got me into the academy. I just read Collision Course, and so I was like, that name, something about it. And then when he said he got me into the academy, I was like,
one of the red shorts, or one of the red shirts is his son.
Yes, exactly. Oopsie doopsies. Yeah, it was cool to get that, and also to like already know that what that meant was that Spock and Kirk went through this like heist basically thanks to this guy. It's cool to see that mentioned together, and like I'm sure there is more of that later, but it was cool to see that in this episode of, oh shit, that's when this started. Like that's the other thing about doing this project, is it's interesting to be like, oh, that's when that trope started. This is the time that this happened. Yeah. Like this felt very much like that, which was really cool. I liked that a lot.
Yeah, because in the 60s they're just saying stuff. They're just writing stuff down. They're just saying stuff, and then like there aren't many franchises, period, that have the canon and continuity that Star Trek does. So it's interesting to watch it, like what things stay, what things become like golden canon, what things get tossed out, what things are blatantly ignored by new showrunners. Vulcans shouldn't kiss with their mouths.
No, they don't. Who doesn't know that?
The showrunners of Strange New Worlds? I don't know. Look, I have a lot of problems with Strange New Worlds. Everybody knows this. Whatever.
Whatever.
Yeah, I don't have a ton of Apocrypha. This is an episode that is very mixed reviews. Some people think it's one of the best. Some people think it's one of the worst. Some people think it's mid. Like, it is just, but it is an iconic episode. It's one where, like, if you show a still to somebody, they're going to be like, ah, yes, I've seen a still of this. I'm sure Bobby will talk about this, but one of the feeders of all is David Stoll, who is in Starsky and Hutch, so that's funny.
Cool.
Yeah. Spock's shirt that got hit by the lightning was auctioned off at a science fiction convention in 1967, which would have been the same year this came out, which is crazy.
Sense.
But I mean, I think that's cool that like even early on in this fandom was intense. And like, again, this is like in many ways the foundational fandom for how we interact with media fandom today. And so seeing something like from a television show be auctioned off is like interesting to me.
I like when they do that stuff too, because you can tell that they never thought it could have been saved and make more money.
Yeah.
Like you could make
I don't know
so
how
much more money.
I don't know how much it got auctioned for, but it can't have been that much.
That's what I was just thinking. I would really like to know. What do you think it is?
A couple $100.
That's kind of what I was thinking too.
Like, it would go for like thousands and thousands, especially like now. Like, if you go to buy something with Leonard Nimoy's signature, it's like minimum $500 because he's dead.
Yeah,
right?
exactly. There's only a certain number,
and that's a signature, right? Like, so something that he like wore in this TV show, it's got to be like an insane amount of money.
Mm-hmm. Now it definitely would be. I'm just so curious about like I was thinking. I don't know why the number I thought it was $175.
Yeah, I mean, who knows? Maybe we're wrong. Maybe it was like a ton of money, but I really cannot imagine it being that much money and like a year afterwards.
Yeah,
you know, because it's the same year. So I don't know.
Interesting.
Because they do get canceled after season 2, so I think they're like, whatever, get rid of all this shit. Yeah. We're not going to need any of this stuff again.
Yeah, that's true.
They were wrong. Do you have any other thoughts about this episode? I do think that Spock and Kirk do, despite Kirk being kind of an asshole in this episode and Spock being like level-headed, there are some good like flirty quips. When Spock like gets hit by the darts, it's because he pushes Kirk out of the way and then he lives, and then Kirk's like, don't do that. Don't do it again.
Not only did he push him, he got an earned gym, which was also excellent.
Yeah.
That it was like, you can see this, like the bond between the two of them, which was really nice. I liked that a lot.
Yeah.
Speaking of the like good moments, I noticed right away when Kirk is watching people reappear, Bones appears and he just has like the dreamiest, most romantic look. Like, oh, Bones is here.
He loves paradise.
It was, he was like, he's gonna be so happy when he gets down here. Like, it was just such a like. I know that the like we didn't necessarily mean it in the gay way all the time, but like that felt gay as hell.
I mean, Shatner gazes.
There's a lot of gazing in both of these episodes.
Yeah, Shatner gazes for sure. And then he's like, why do people think they were gay? And it's like, because of what you're doing. Actually, it's mostly you, dude.
That's what you get. It's theater. It just makes everything like that.
That and it being like, the TVs are small. You have to stand right up in each other's business. You have to be really close.
Okay, those are my thoughts.
Synopsis showdown.
All right, let's do it.
Mine is a basic bitch one. I just wrote, Kirk don't give a fuck about that prime directive.
Kirk teaches a planet to fuck.
Yeah, fuck.
I know. Yeah. I wrote it right afterwards. I would change it now. I would say Kirk tells a planet they need to fuck.
Yeah. Yeah.
See, sometimes they're not super great right afterwards, all right? If I had a minute to think about it.
You can take a minute next time if you want. No more than a minute, though.
Okay, fair enough.
Are you ready for Scully? It's me.
I am, I guess.
What are you watching?
Something that just came in the mail.
It's not your usual brand of entertainment. What is it?
According to the magazine ad I answered, it's an alien autopsy.
All right, here comes a summary, but I need everyone to know that I wrote at the top for myself, good luck, bitch. So here we go. We find ourselves in a mystery. It starts out strong with some great train shot letting us know, hey guys, you're going to see some trains. There's an autopsy happening on a train, and it's purposely shot like, that alien autopsy on, as Scully says, the Fox Network. Hilarious because we all know that the Fox Network evolved into a lot of fake news. Anyway, the autopsy gets brutal because they all get murdered as fuck. So Mulder, of course, having spent money to have the VHS tape of this autopsy sent to him so that, he could see it and show Scully and be like, I told you so. They head off to Pennsylvania to track down the satellite thief, and he's also murdered as fuck. And then there's some running, and Mulder loses his gun. And then there's this theme starting of Japanese men doing shady things. And okay, listen. There is a lot going on in these 2 episodes, so I'm just going to kind of sum up the good parts from here. So, Skinner shows up to remind them that he constantly has their back, including him sitting in the dark being creepy. Like, I truly got it. Are you going to shoot me? I don't know, maybe you will. Hot. Scully does detective work that leads her to finally getting answers that satisfy her about the government actually experimenting on her. This involves a bunch of creepy women. Mulder, of course, breaks into a naval yard and is like, I'm gonna jump in the water. He's a very smart man. Anyway, Mulder jumps onto a moving train also and does enough detective work to find a living alien on the train, but is it? Mulder, once again, gets his ass kicked and almost dies on the train that they forced into nowhere because Mulder took a huge chance that the government would come for them, LOL. Also, by the way, there's a bunch of genocide of people who don't have great diseases. It's not great. You should watch it, I guess, and determine for yourself how you feel about that. It's bad. I don't love it. Anyway, X, once again, saves their asses and literally carries Mulder away from the danger. There is a beautiful shot of him walking away when the train is exploding. Hey, guess what? All the evidence is gone. All right, that's good enough. What did you think of this episode?
I don't know.
These episodes, there's two of them, I guess.
I kind of feel like, what's the point?
That's fair.
That's kind of how I felt the whole episode, where I was just like my experience with mythology episodes, obviously out of continuity, but I've seen enough of them at this time, especially since I've seen all of season 1 and all of season 2.
I think so, yeah.
Is that the mythology episodes are pointless because nothing ever happens by the end. They go on these wild goose chases. They break into facilities. Skinner gets mad. X gets mad. Kirsch gets mad. Cigarette smoking man gets mad. They find all of this shit, and then at the end, literally nothing happens, and everybody feels bad afterwards.
You have discovered the X-Files.
So, like, I get that some people don't like the mythology episodes because there's no payoff.
Yeah.
In terms of long-term storytelling. But yeah, because like if you were watching them and you like you're not getting the payoff in the episodes, but then you got the payoff in long-term story like telling, like that would be one thing. But knowing that you don't get the payoff in either, it's like,
yes.
Which is also wild when like we watch like a funny one or a Monster of the Week one and people are like, this sucks. I'm like, why are you here?
Some people love the mythology ones. Like, even though there's not a satisfying ending, I mean, there is an ending. They do mask tape over it. Like, there is an ending to this story. It is not satisfying and you don't really learn anything.
Yeah.
And so I think that some people who enjoy that are like, you piece it together and you get to look for the mystery and who's cigarette smoking man and who's the other dude. Like, there's so much of that inside of the mythology. So I get it. I can understand how someone's like, I'm going to take this as a whole and these are the things I like. Like, watching all this Syndicate in a row, like, would be a cool way to experience this. I would never fucking do that because I find these super fucking boring. But I totally understand what you're saying. And you're right. It is really frustrating.
To be honest, I find myself like zoning out during mythology episodes where I'm just like, I don't know. I don't care about this. Like, nothing's going to happen and nothing does happen. Like, yeah, there's some, like, character development between Mulder and Scully, and, like, obviously, like, it's like, he finds the proof he wants to see, and she finds the proof, he finds the proof he wants to see, and then she finds the proof she wants to see, and then they both feel justified and then are annoyed by the other, which feels, like, very important in this, like, season 3 atmosphere. There's obviously, like, great Skinner in this, there's good X in this, I think the actors that I've seen play Syndicate members are interesting. They cast the Syndicate very well, I think. Mm-hmm. And like, but also these episodes are really racist. Like, these episodes are deeply racist. To me, watching these episodes is Carter being like, I want to show, or whoever wrote this, I want to show some medical experiments because I think that could be an interesting angle for Scully, because be like, oh, I actually wasn't up, because she's starting to believe the abduction. So it's like, oh, actually I wasn't abducted. It was government experiments. I can accept that. And so they're like, okay, governments do experiments. We've done some US ones. Oh, let's do like Nazi ones. Nazis feel played out. Ooh, you know who else was a baddie? Japan. That's what it feels like. It feels like they took and I'm not saying Japan didn't do anything bad during World War II. That's not what I'm saying. But it seems like they wrote a Nazi story and then we're like, Nazis are really overplayed. What if we just made them Japanese instead? That's what it feels like.
Would you like to know something shocking?
Am I right?
No, you're not at all. Not even remotely. Chris Carter came up with the idea that because he read, what he said was, Unit 731 first came to my attention at the same time it did for a lot of people when I read it in the New York Times about what the Japanese did to prisoners during the Second World War, and then they expounded on it.
So this is very in vogue in the 90s.
Absolutely.
Like, you know, I know some people are like super into like war history. I'm not. And I'm not into like World War II in the way that, I don't know, men of a certain age are.
Yeah.
Like, I know the important basics. Nazis bad. Like, you know, but the Japanese atrocities or whatever during World War II aren't taught as much in American schools.
Exactly.
And so, like, obviously it makes sense to me that there were experimentations because every government does this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So that's, like, not shocking. But I guess that makes sense that if this was very of the moment in the 90s, it's like, oh, let's put it in the TV show.
Also, this is the first time some people are ever hearing about the fact that Nazis were brought over without justice just to work on science. Like, some people did not know that until this came out, and the New York Times did pieces on it. Like,
that is wild.
It's nuts. And, like, the other idea was was weirdly held in about the, like, internment camps that Japanese people were in too. And so it's like this very weird dichotomy of, like, these people are evil, but they're also, like, working outside of this. They tried to do a lot with it, because you're right, it is Nazi shit, but it's, like, directly tied in with this other stuff. It's a much more rounded idea than I would normally see from Chris Carter, is what I would say.
I think maybe it feels racist because they don't actually get into a lot of that in the episode because they are distracted by the X-Files of it. They're distracted by the Mulder, the aliens and stuff. So, and then, like, they throw in, like, lepers and stuff, which, like...
that's supposed to be the Japanese internment camp
right.
stuff.
And, like... I find it cool and fascinating that a lot of this is, like, based in historical fact, and we've talked about that a lot with some of the, like, Vietnam episodes and stuff, but you also, like, you know, don't talk down to your audience, but also give your audience the stuff that they need to know what the fuck is happening. It just felt, maybe that's just a me thing, it just felt really random. It just felt really random to be like, we're chasing aliens, now we're chasing Japanese people. Now here are some lepers. Now here's a bomb. Like, the bomb truly was, like, the last straw for me, where I was like, why is this? This seems like too much. This feels like an episode of 24 where you're like, I'm done, actually. I'm in hour 8.
Every other episode of 24?
I'm in hour 8, and honestly, too many atrocities. Like, there's actually...
a nuclear bomb went off, like, at 2 a.m. What are we doing for the rest of the day here? Like, aren't you dead?
That's what these episodes feel like. And, like, I don't know. I get that television, even in the 90s, was still a lot more episodic, even when they were doing, like, long-form story or long-form, like, story arcs. But it does feel like this actually deserved more than 2 episodes. This feels like this should have been a season arc instead of shoved into 2 episodes to me.
A lot of people said it should have been a movie.
Yeah.
It should have been a movie. And, like, they almost didn't do this because when they were trying to figure it out, they were like, how the fuck do we make all of this work? Like, we have to do these huge shots to do this. And so at first it got tabled because they were like, make a movie. You can't, we absolutely can't do this. And then after a while they were like, you know, we could try it. And it became so involved that they split it into 2. And so that's part of it. They knew that it was too much, and then they wound up splitting it. And so it winds up a little further back in the season. But you can tell this should have been a movie. It's beautifully shot, and, like, there are so many big wide shots of people. Mulder running across the, like, naval yard.
Beautiful shots.
They're beautiful,
and there's good acting in it. Like, the guy that plays, like, the head leper does, like, a really
he's
good
fantastic
job.
The thing that a lot of people said on the, like, crew and writing staff is this should have been the movie instead of Fight the Future, that comes after the 5. And they tried to do Fight the Future in almost the exact same way, where there's a lot going on. It's a bomb. They're, like, figuring shit out. And it's like, why didn't you just do this one?
The bomb was so unnecessary.
It's sort of like when they were like, we can't do this death one. We'll just make it a movie and it's Final Destination. Like, some things just work better with 95 minutes instead of whatever, you know, like straight through.
Yeah, maybe too, the, like, Japanese stuff didn't really work for me because we actually hardly interact with them at all. We see them at the beginning and then they get murdered, and then we see the guy kick Mulder and then he gets murdered, and then we see a guy on the train and then he gets murdered. And
a lot of fridging.
Yeah, so, like, I think that maybe that's why it felt racist, because, like, yeah, we are establishing that these are bad men, but we're also not giving them any characters at all. We're not making them actually vital parts of the plot. They, like, literally,
even the one that's, like, really important, they, like, they don't do anything with him.
They barely say any words. Like, they exist. They exist as pawns in this story.
Mhm.
And even, you know, obviously every culture, subculture, like, has good and bad people in it. Like, but that's the human race. That's like humanity. So like showing the bad parts of these people would have been more interesting than just being like, oh, there's another dead Japanese person here.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I
totally,
mean?
yeah, I totally know what you mean.
Also, maybe that would have been like, and maybe even if they had like contextualized the like war crimes, like they do, but they also like don't.
One of the things I do like about this episode, having rewatched it, is that it feels very clear throughout the whole script the bad people are actually the Americans, and like
Yeah.
they're the ones also committing these atrocities. And so I did like that it was like, yeah, that they're both bad, but honestly in this context the Americans are much worse.
Right, yeah, like the Americans are trying to pawn everything off on it's just the Japanese people who are bad, but like really the episode is about them cleaning up their own mess.
Exactly, yep.
Because like they brought the like war doctor over and then literally gave him like 50 acres and a bunch of people to experiment on.
Mm-hmm.
Like so like America is bad in this, obviously. And the like it's also really fucked up, like the shot of them murdering all of those like people.
Yes, again, should have been a movie. Feels like a movie moment, not like it's television 9:30 at night. Like, I agree, it's very hard to watch.
Yeah, and like how casual it is, like that would have been pretty like upsetting, like because I feel like a lot of like kids watched this show, not kids but like teens or whatever. I feel like seeing that at 13 would have been pretty fucked up.
You want it to be casual, though, right? That's how you show the Americans are bad. They don't give a fuck. Yes, Bobby, what do you need?
It was fucked up.
Yeah.
I watched it as a kid. It was fucked up.
It's crazy what Americans put on TV.
Yeah, for real.
Like, I know we LOL talk about Hannibal all the time. How is that on TV?
Mm-hmm.
That nuts. Like, genuinely insane what they put on television. And they're like, when was that 10 o'clock? 10 o'clock is not late.
I know, after 10 o'clock we can say fuck, and like, what is the difference? 9:55 you can't say fuck, 10:05 you can say fuck, like, what's the difference?
Yeah, the only episode of Hannibal that they had problems with censors with is when they gave kids some guns, and they were like, ugh, I don't know about that. Or when they wanted to say muff diver, because one of the characters is a lesbian, and they were like, oh, you can't say muff diver. Sure, yeah, you could show that guy's skin put on to like an animal carcass, like bones. That's fine. Muff diver? I draw the line.
That's the thing, though. Like,
America is wild.
America is wild because, like, we're such a puritanical culture in so many ways still. And it's like, sex, bad. Don't touch each other. Val says no. Like, that's Americans. But, like, guns, whatever. Like, here, not the children with the guns, but, like, I can peel a man's face off. Like, violence is totally acceptable and something kids can see and learn from TV, but not that.
One of the most popular shows on television for 25 years has been, like, what if we abuse women and children?
Which one? Be more specific.
Modern SVU. Like, yes, there are, like, quote-unquote good guys who are stopping the bad guys, but, like, all of those atrocities still happen, and that's just, like, weekly television.
Absolutely. There's a reason we stopped watching it. Like, it's not good. Anyway.
Yeah. Anyways, yeah, I don't know. Maybe I would have different feelings about this episode if I was watching it, like, in continuity, or if I, like, watched it again, like, knowing more about the like, actual history of like the Japanese war experiments and stuff, but I don't know.
I get it.
I do think that the acting was good in it, and I do think that like Mulder and Scully were interesting in it, and that like I do think it's an interesting angle to be like she found the evidence she needed and he found the evidence he needed. Like that's interesting.
You get a lot of the supporting cast too. You get great Skinner, you get awesome X in this.
Yeah.
This is one of those episodes where it's like, oh, right, I remember why I fucking love X, and it's because he rules. He is more actively involved in his, like, spy work with them than Ron was. Yeah. And this is one of those that it's like, this is who he is. He does give them information that sometimes yes, sometimes no. He went specifically to talk to Scully, and she's like, here's some information. And he was like, got it. I know where that dipshit is. Like, it's like he has a tracker on him. He's like, I won't put it on his gun because he loses all the time, but like, maybe I'll put it somewhere else. Like, that's a very X thing. And I love that Scully I love that Scully puts up the X and is just like, fuck this shit. And just wipes it all off of the windowsill. And then X is like, I'm ready to go. I like that a lot. I think it's very funny that the first time you met X is when Skinner beats the shit out of him. Because that's such an uncharacteristic thing to happen to X, which is why it's shocking when it happens.
Yeah.
But like now you just know X is like this dude who's like a badass, but also got his ass kicked.
You don't fuck with Skinner, man.
Some of the first seeds of you being like, Walter Skinner, hello.
A beacon in the darkness.
Yeah, a beacon in the night is what Mulder called him. A beacon in the night. It's very funny. Okay, I have a little bit of Apocrypha. Who would you guess did all the stunt work?
David Duchovny.
Correct. He did do all of the
Seems
stunt
like
work.
the type of actor that's like, I'll do it.
He like forced them to let him do it in another episode, and he was like, guess what? I could totally do this. They worked on that train. That's real. That's a real stunt. They worked on it for 6 weeks.
Insane.
Because Mulder had to
Yeah,
learn
that
how to
seems
jump
like
on a fucking
movie
train.
thing, not an episode
Exactly.
thing.
Like all this shit with the trains feels very cinematic. It's very bizarre that they didn't just make this into a movie or just save it until the movie even. You gotta drop this in at the same place. Yeah, he is, when he's clinging to the side of the car, they do have a harness, which they removed later. But David was like, let's do it, motherfucker. I want to do it.
I
And
mean,
so,
to be fair, if you got a chance to jump on a train in a pretty safe way,
hell yeah.
wouldn't you do it?
Hell
Like,
yeah, I would do it.
these people aren't going to let me die. I want to jump on a train.
Yeah,
I get
it's-
why actors are like, I want to do my own stunts.
And like, David Duchovny has only been a star for what, like 5-6 years at this point? He's not like a big dick movie star, but he's like, I'm doing it. Guess what, motherfuckers? I'm doing it. I love that. And also, because he did it in this and the other episode, Ascension, where he's on the gondola, also his own stunts, because he's a fucking psycho. Because he did these 2 episodes, he was like, guess what? I'm doing all of my own Fight the Future stunts also. And they were like, we've created a fucking monster.
Actually, please stop.
Right? Like in that one, in Fight the Future, they were like, he's gonna kill himself. There was a couple where he was like, we can't let him do this. And he was like, psych, going down the tunnel. He's a psychopath. And I love him for it. David Duchovny also said it was a fun experience because he's very weird. The aliens are played by 11-year-old twins. There's 2 of them, one that's murdered, I guess, and then the other one. Those 2, and then it's upsetting to see this in the context, but like if you think about the actual physicality of it, the people lying in the pit are arranged. You can tell that they're like set there for cinematic purposes.
Yeah.
All of those people were children in alien masks and makeup. Yeah, right? It's like
absolutely wild.
it's a wild thing. There are a lot of
Hey,
like
just
behind
lay down and pretend to be dead in a mass grave, 11-year-old.
There's probably a lot of kids who are like, you know what I want to do? Lay. I'm just gonna lay here and you'll pay me. Like, there's also that. They don't exactly. You get to wear
I guess
fun
that's true.
makeup.
You just get to like vibe and get a bunch of money.
Yeah, you like get to sit in the makeup chair for a bunch of time, which a lot of child actors never get to do. And so I do think it's interesting that they were like, okay, you kids, you get in there. It'll be fine, I guess. There were 25 of them. And then fake bodies. This is the first episode with Agent Pendrell, the poor doomed motherfucker who's deeply in love with Dana Scully. It's the first time you get to see him. Do you know his? I think you've definitely seen him.
Yeah, I haven't seen him die, but you've told me that he dies.
Yes, because he tries to protect Scully and fails immediately, and she steps over his dead body. So like, it doesn't work for him really ever. But going back and watching it now, I'm like, this is kind of nice. They would be a better match in many ways, which is like a terrible thing to say as the OTP, but like they are a better match, and he clearly like really cares about her, where Mulder's just kind of like, I love you. I'm going to go do a bunch of stuff you don't tell me to do. Like Pendrell has that line that's like, I ran it because I thought you'd want me to. Like he thinks ahead about what Scully wants, where Mulder's just like, hey, it's me, I'm on a train, bye. And then like chucks his cell phone, right? So like the more I watch it, the more I'm like, oh, Pendrell, you do die, but you are a sweetheart. He's just a little sweetheart with such a crush on her. It won 2 Emmys. This episode did. Outstanding Individual Achievement in Sound Editing for a Series and Outstanding Individual Achievement in Sound Mixing for a Drama Series. Because, of course, like, they won a ton of Emmys for this. The sound mixing is fucking fantastic. Like, this episode, again, it's a fucking movie. They're just movies. And they're shot like movies. They're cinematic like movies. Like, that's the whole fucking thing. Interesting note. Culturally, it's pointed to as an example of popular culture showing the erosion of faith in science. So that's what it's also about, is like, is this real? Is that real? This is horrible and real. Like, I thought it's, again, for Fox at the time, it's sort of like Star Trek, right? Like, that is a very progressive theme to present to an audience. Like, I like that a lot. That it's like science is real, but also you have to think about it. You do have to be actively involved in knowing science. Like, I really, really liked that. Reception? Good. People call it a lot of fun. A lot of people think it's like phenomenal. People think that it's part of it is the big budget, like action film feel of it, because it did have a big fucking action budget. People don't like it because the mythology, obviously, like you said, there's like no real payoff. It's like, you guys are just like playing in our face at this point. And so that, I agree. And so that is part of it. And so like, you're totally right about that. Let me see. What else? Oh, then the thing that they say is that at the end, it just kind of slides into nothing. It's just kind of sloppy. There's not a lot of resolution, like you said. Why did this shit happen? Why are there no consequences? But people acting in it really liked it because they said that it was beautifully written in many ways. It gave them these like interactions to have with each other, which is really nice. And like people notice that also. This is a negative review, but I don't think it is actually. Robert Shearman called the episode Planes, Trains, and Automobiles Invented as an Action Movie. And like, I don't think that's an insult, actually, which is kind of what it is. Yeah, that's it.
All right. Synopsis showdown.
Yes. X saves everyone's ass as usual.
Mulder chases aliens while Scully chases explanations. Neither are satisfied.
All right, that's fine. Anyway, you ready for Deep Throat's mission logs?
Sure am.
Scotty, you're rehired.
Jumping into the Apple. Original air date, October 13th, 1967. Story by Max Ehrlich. This is all we see from him in original Trek. He wrote all around TV, though. Defenders, Untouchable, Wild Wild West. He won an award from the Writers' War Board for his work during World War II, and also worked in the script division for the American Jewish Committee, helping promote good depictions of Jewish people in the media at the time. Very important. Directed by Joseph Pevney. Some fun production stuff. Originally, the script called for Vol's stone dinosaur snakehead to explode when being pummeled by the phasers of the Enterprise. However, production staff had worked to paper mache that cave so much that they didn't want to destroy it, so they pushed back against that so that it could remain intact.
That's funny.
A bit about censorship here. Censorship stepped in and changed editing in it to look like Yaman Landon was not sleeping in the cave with the rest of the male officers, so that she wasn't sleeping in a cave with a bunch of men.
Stupid.
So, more about this planet and more about Vol. I'm going to focus on two of the comic book stories here, but this is kind of spread throughout. There's one kind of smaller thing in an IDW Star Trek ongoing that is an alternate version of this mission, and the joke there is that all the red shirts live.
Is it 2009 adaptation? Is it like the adaptation that's in the Kelvin universe?
I think possibly, yes.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. However, the one I really want to focus on is the DC Comics story. It's 3 comics called Return of the Serpent: Paradise Lost, Past Perfect, Devil Down Below. Overarchingly here, what we learn, or what this story poses about this planet, is that this planet was made by refugees of Erin. Erin is the planet that we see in Return to Tomorrow. Sargon, those sphere people. You learn from them that, like, they killed all of their planet years ago by war. At a certain point, refugees from there fabricated this planet. They made it millions and millions of years ago and installed Val in it to basically run the planet, trying to create a paradise. So you create the whole artificial planet.
That's so wild because we're watching that episode next.
Oh, is it next?
Is it what? It's the Return of the
Return to Tomorrow. We watched it already.
Never.
Yeah,
Sorry, I was looking the Return of the Archons.
Oh yeah, no. Return. Return to Tomorrow. That's the Diana Muldaur episode where she's not blind, and it's Kirk and Spock and her character getting taken over by those people who are in the sphere to make android bodies for them. That was our second body swap episode.
Okay. Oh God.
Yeah.
Too many episodes.
It's that. Well, we talked about that season 2, so it's been a while.
Yeah.
So makes this planet and makes it perfectly balanced in every single way, and these people that there are fabricated to be there and fabricated to not want anything and do anything, just feed Vol the explosive rocks so that the engine of this artificial planet can keep going. In the comic books, they return there and they find the place completely fucking trashed. Spock then mind melds with Vol to learn all of this and learn what's wrong. There is a rebel faction against Vol being run by Makota, the younger Valian that we see kissing someone. This gets resolved by learning all of this history, and then Vol makes Makota his new eyes, as opposed to Akuda, who was still there. That's how we do this piece. But that is how we explain what this planet is, why it's there, and why Kirk really did fuck up something that was working perfectly on its own.
So wild.
Jumping to some casting, we'll do the bigger call-outs here. We see Mal Friedman as Hendorf. His only other role is in a 2017 Double Fine video game, which is great. But I read in his profile that he was working as a carpet cleaner and was employed by Gene Kuhn's wife, and she got him on the show.
All right.
Jeffrey Daniels is Marple, one of the red shirts who get killed. He does 5 episodes of Police Story and some other guest roles, and also works with the actress who plays Yauman Landon in a film called The Velvet Vampire later. Mm-hmm. As Mallory, that's Jay Jones. We've seen him do stunt work before. The story here is he seriously injured himself stepping on that exploding rock.
Oh, no.
Yeah, that is one of the major injuries in his career that he talked about. Stell mentioned earlier, that is David Soul as Makota. That is Hutch in Starsky and Hutch. His role as Detective Hutchinson made him a pop culture icon and a singer. Acted a ton, including playing Ben Mears in the 79 Salem's Lot miniseries. He used his fame in really positive ways, actually. Advocated for awareness of the horrors of the Vietnam War and did a bunch of HIV education as well. Before we get to Celeste Yarnell, who plays Yauman Landon, I will talk about her stunt double for this episode, who is Julie Johnson. Julie Johnson is the one actually doing that fight and all that stunt work. It's so fucking cool. The fight looks amazing. She is most known as being the first woman stunt coordinator for a major television series, and that was Charlie's Angels in the 70s.
Fuck yeah.
Her stunt reel is so amazing. She worked all the way up until 2006 on Crank and Smoking Aces. She also co-authored the book The Stunt Woman, a semi-autobiographical account of her role as whistleblower against sex discrimination in the Hollywood stunt business. Yeah. She was fucking badass.
Rules.
That brings us to Celeste Yarnell, who plays Yauman Martha Landon. Started her career as a model and spokesperson, debuted in the 63 Nutty Professor, played Elvis's love interest in Live a Little, Love a Little, and then moved on to guesting all over TV from 65 onward. She kept working up until the 2000s. She did a couple of guest roles in Melrose Place in the 90s as well. Some further stories from her on this episode. First of all, the uniform that she's wearing is actually Grace Lee Whitney's uniform.
I knew that one.
From Yauman Rand that they tailored to her.
To the point where she kind of pushed back on it, and she was like, well, what if she comes back? And they were like,
she's not coming back. Yeah.
So kind of gross.
That scene where they're all talking about how the Valians would procreate, she mentioned being difficult to get through because Shatner, Nimoy, and DeForest Kelley just kept making jokes and saying weird things about how these people would have sex at the time. Apparently Leonard Nimoy was being quite a practical joker on the set for that shoot as well. As she said, she would get a little nervous as to what he was going to do next. And then her and Shatner legit dated later after feeling chemistry on this set. I know, that's usually David Duchovny.
I was just going to say that. What a Duchovny-ass move.
Yeah. They dated a bit after her divorce.
What a perfect land from a divorce.
Your bounce back is William Shatner.
I mean, young William Shatner was hot as hell.
That's true.
Yeah.
He was hot.
And then later in life, in 1988, she served as an adjunct professor in nutrition at Pacific Western University, and she's written 2 best-selling books about natural pet care. One specifically for cats and one specifically for dogs. That was her focus later in life, was good diet for pets. And then that brings us to Keith Andes as Akuda, aka Space Bill Clinton. Started at radio, age 12, and then made the jump to stage while serving in Air Force 2 in World War II, as part of a show that ended up on Broadway, Winged Glory, which got him noticed by industry agents. He later played opposite Lucille Ball in Lucille Ball's only Broadway musical, Wildcat, in 1960, which then opened the door for him to start guesting all over Desilu Productions on TV and things like that. Awesome. Larger film roles in Tora 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 and in Justice for All, and he was also the voice of Birdman in the classic Hanna-Barbera cartoon Birdman. He has a good voice.
Yeah.
Pretty commanding voice.
Mm-hmm.
Moving on to The X-Files. Nisei, original air date November 24th, 1995. And then, of course, 7/31 was the next week.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of going to handle these all together just because it does seem like one fluid production. Nisei being noted as written by Chris Carter, Howard Gordon, and Frank Spotnitz, directed by David Nutter. Again, all in the X-Files wheelhouse staff. And then 7/31, written specifically by Spotnitz, and then directed specifically by Rob Bowman. I think probably because there was so much stunt work in a fucking explosion. Bowman's usually the person that have been in their more stunt-heavy directing roles. I write a lot in my notes about 1995's Alien Autopsy Fact or Fiction, hosted by Jonathan One Take Frakes. It's just really interesting culturally to me how such a clear hoax was so well produced that it fooled not only people all over watching it, but also the people who produced the documentary that the fake footage was based off of. The 90s were a wild time. In some ways, I'm happy we're a lot more skeptical now.
Yeah, for real.
There's a film produced called Alien Autopsy in 2006 that shows, in a comedic way, the story behind the autopsy as well. Fun. Good times.
Also, after 7/31 or Nisei, I don't remember which one, it was the first time that Fox re-aired it too. So it's like you got to see this autopsy being referenced, and then immediately after you get to be like, oh, this is source material. And they didn't do it on purpose. They were like, this is just where this is gonna go. And it's like, oh, you're doing an episode on this. I see.
It, of course, gets lambasted even further in Jose Chung's From Outer Space, which we saw. Like, that is even a more direct making fun of this for me. But that was another fucked up thing I watched on TV as a kid. Mm-hmm. Of course, in Nisei, that line from Mulder, I get tired of losing my gun, a direct tip of the hat to fandom and the tropes that they have established on the message board of Mulder always losing his gun. Little things like that were manna from heaven on the message boards. They love them so fucking much.
It's such a good line.
In 7/31, we see the call out during the opening credits changing from Trust No One to Apology is Policy, which kind of became a call and response to the fandom as well. Someone would yell Trust No One, and then someone would have to post Apology is Policy. It shows the continuing narrative of the show. There are several locations in this, the trains, shipping docks, things like that, that are also used in the X-Files point-and-click video game, where you play as a new agent, but you do interact with several people that are specifically in this episode. I don't know if that was done because it was kind of being produced at the same time, so I'm sure they could have access to a lot of pictures, production skills, and also those locations. And then Erin has a great job of putting in a lot of quotes at the time from reviews and things like that. Again, Erin said this was kind of polarizing. I want to call out one from Emily Vanderwerf at the time.
I love her review. I was like, this is awesome.
Specifically the line, because as Stell said, nothing gets achieved in these episodes.
Yeah.
Emily Vanderwerf in this review says, it speaks more to the sadness at the core of the X-Files to have Mulder find his answers and be forced to accept that they weren't what he was looking for. And I think that line of that sadness at the core of the X-Files is so true, because to me, it's a show about grief. Generational grief, societal grief, personal grief. You think about the family losses in both of them. You think about governments lying to us and us rebelling and all of that. Like, it's a cycle, and there is sadness there, and they don't get anywhere until they decide to completely abandon it and fuck off to their summer homes in their lives or whatever.
Yeah.
Like, we've seen old them and this weird complacency that they have of the ridiculousness of everything that they've went through. They get there eventually, but you get there by not caring as much anymore. I will jump to some casting for both of these episodes. Again, huge cast both episodes, so we'll do big call outs here. The rest are in my notes. I will start with Yasuo Sakurai, though, who plays Kazuo Sakurai, the Japanese man that we meet at the beginning of Nisei. His only other credits is the TV show Airwolf, which is a TV show that stars a helicopter named Airwolf.
Oh, man.
Brendan Beezer as Adric Pendrell, who we have talked about before, but he was recently on Reacher and The Boys and 3 season 2 episodes of Discovery as well. So he's working in actual places that we're seeing. Lori Triolo as Diane. Diane is the first creepy lady that Scully sees when she opens the door.
The one with the brown hair?
Yeah, the one with the brown hair. She's got a lot of Canadian awards for acting in TV as well. She does 2 Supernatural episodes. I know you were focused on the other one, but she does 2 Supernatural episodes. Season 7, episodes 2 and 3, Hello Cruel World and The Girl Next Door. She plays a character who's listed as Head Nurse or Leviathan.
Oh, yeah. Season 7 is the Leviathan episode where... It doesn't matter. It's terrible.
I love
Season 6 is the worst season in my opinion, but most people think that Season 7 is the worst season because the Leviathans are a type of monster that are trash.
I love being told that doesn't matter. That feels great. Jillian Barber playing Penny Northern was the one that you picked up on, and she comes back in Memento Mori as the same character. We also see her in the season 2 episode Red Museum and Ghost in the Machine season 1 as well. She also is Ambassador Draylock on SG-1, and then you say she plays an annoying British woman in Supernatural.
So there's a season where they find out that there's this thing called the Men of Letters, and it's like basically the supernatural like society, the Society of Hunters, not just but they're like fancy or whatever.
Okay.
And then you find out that they're like rooted in like the British like Society of like Hunters or whatever. But the season is not very fun because get these British men out of my show about like American boys who shoot like ghosts with guns. And she's like one of the like head, like really injecting some like hoity-toity, like that's Irish, whatever. Really injecting some like very like posh British bullshit into Supernatural was very annoying because it was like that's not the vibe here. Actually, the vibe is we have sawed-off shotguns and we punch ghosts.
We're very vroom vroom our car in type blue jeans here. That's not the vibe.
And I mean like that's why they made okay antagonists or whatever. But it was just like every scene was just them coming in and be like, ugh. Dirty Americans, blah, 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 with your flannel. And I was like, we get it. We're done. The flannel's going to win.
It does. It did. Moving on to Dr. Ishimaro / Zama, who's played by Robert Ito. Canadian born in 1931. He won a tap dancing competition at age 5 and then like did a bunch of talent shows and competitions around
Mozart.
in the 30s and
All right.
40s. And then danced in the National Ballet of Canada for like a decade before transitioning to TV and film in the late 60s. Late 60s, no Star Trek TOS. Sorry. I thought we were going to get it, but I Spy, Get Smart, Kung Fu Mannix, all those shows, just not that. Has a major role in Quincy M.E., 140 episodes as Sam Fujiyama, and then also plays Professor Hakita in The Adventures of Buckaroo Banzai. Also a huge voice actor of Smurfs, Sylvester and Tweety Mysteries, Avatar The Last Airbender, Batman the Animated Series, a bunch of stuff there. He's also done a couple of Treks. Season 1, episode 19 of TNG, he's in Coming of Age. And then Voyager season 7, episode 19, author. He plays John Kim, Harry Kim's dad.
Hilarious. Is he just disappointed in his son?
No, they love their... It's noted in his character profile in Memory Alpha that he loves his son very much.
I don't hate Harry Kim like other people.
It's a joke that people... Yeah.
They don't develop a lot of the characters on Voyager a lot, so it's very easy to shit on them. Like, Voyager is a unique show with, like, truly an amazing captain and just, like, a milquetoast crew, which is unfortunate. And
given some really bad scripts as well. Yeah. Given some of the loosest, also most shitty scripts in Trek, just because of who was the showrunner at the time.
He was a sexist prick.
Oh,
That's
great.
all you need to know.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Getting to some people that we've seen before that we're checking back in, that's Raymond J. Barry as Senator Matheson. We've now seen all of the episodes in the show that he's in.
Oh,
That's
That makes sense. He's not in a ton.
in a weird order.
we've seen
Yeah, in a very weird order.
Little Green Men. That's the Puerto Rican radio tower episode, and then SR 819, which is Skinner's Nanite Blood. Don S. Williams we see again as the first elder, predominantly in 731. We discussed him previously, also in Zero Sum, and he does 14 episodes of the show.
Do they all die? Do they all die horribly? What
Except
happens to
for
them?
Smoky Man.
Well, yeah, obviously.
Yeah, they all of them and their families are rounded up into a warehouse and then they shoot them.
Oh.
Including the children.
Much
which
like-
they allowed them to
Horrible.
do on TV. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
No. You can shoot kids on TV. You just can't have them holding guns.
Yep, exactly. 100%. Absolutely
That's
makes
where
sense.
we draw the line.
Actually, you know what? Now that I'm like thinking it as you say that out loud, it probably is really good and necessary that children never see children holding guns. Because then if you have a gun in the house, it becomes I want to play
I'm
my
not
gun.
saying that that's not. It's just like out of everything.
Oh, I agree. It just as we were talking about it right now, I was like, oh, that's probably why they do that. That would make a lot of sense. Anyway, go ahead, Bobby.
You guys called out the fantastic performance of the plague survivor Escalante, who's played by Colin Cunningham. He's in a lot of makeup, but we've actually seen him before. He plays Lieutenant Wilmer in the season 2 episode 14 episode Endgame. That was our surprise sibling episode all the way back in season 1 of this podcast. When we talked about him back then, I talked about his prominence in Canadian shows. He's a 3-time Gemini and 11-time Leo nominee. That's the Canadian Oscars and the Canadian Emmys. John Pope on Falling Sky, Skies TC on Preacher, Paul Davis on SG-1. If you actually saw his face, you would recognize him. Mm-hmm. He's pretty well worked. And then as our poor, sad conductor, that poor put-upon man that Mulder just hands an empty gun and expects him to solve everything. That's Michael Putinen, who we've actually also seen as well. He was in season 3's Vietnam War episode when we talked about Sleepless.
Who was he in that?
One of the tired ones.
I assume so, but I'm curious about which one.
Hold on.
He was great in this as the train
He just
conductor.
trusted Mulder. He was like, something about this guy.
He also felt like, okay.
Just his like, yeah, I think I got it.
Right.
I'll
Mulder's
shoot him
like,
with the
see, it's
gun."
really empty. It's a super empty gun.
So he's done 4 X-Files episodes.
Oh.
He's in Deep Throat as a hotel manager. In Sleepless, he is, I think, the doctor. He's Dr. Pilson.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I see. Okay.
And then he comes back for Elegy in season 4 as well. So we already have talked about him, and Stella, you will see more of him in the future, although I don't think we will talk about him in this podcast anymore, right?
So.
And that brings us to the last person I would talk about today, who is Stephen McCaddy as the red-haired man, the NSA agent that we see, who's not Lance Henriksen, although he looks a lot like Lance Henriksen.
He was good.
He also looks like Willem Dafoe in a couple of those shots.
He
It's
also
weird.
looks like Doggett.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you're right. He does kind of look like Robert Patrick.
Well-worked and awarded Canadian actor, frequently cast in Canadian indie director Bruce McDonald's movies. One of those is a fantastic horror movie named Pontypool, where he plays an irascible radio DJ. Stell, it's technically zombies, but it's still really, really good. You also might have seen him as a loyalist in the 300, Hollis Mason in the 09 Watchmen movie, the Grand Inquisitor of the absolute trip of a movie, The Fountain. And was and was the narrator in Basketballs as well. He does 22 episodes of Scene of the Crime as Mike Hunt, 44 episodes of Cold Squad as Frank Costolera, but he is regularly working and he is all over the place still. He's also done a couple of Treks as well. Enterprise season 3 episode 1, The Zindi, he's an alien mine foreman, probably one of the Zindi in heavy makeup. And then one of the more notable DS9 episodes in The Pale Moonlight, season 6, episode 16. He is one of the head Romulan senators, Senator Vreenak, who Sisko is trying to fool into jumping into war with the Dominion. Fantastic actor, is fantastic in this as well.
Mm-hmm. I like that you left out Watchmen.
I talked about the Watchmen.
Oh, okay.
I did say Watchmen. I said the 09 Watchmen. It is, yeah.
The 09 Watchmen.
Well,
because they have the TV show.
Because now they have the TV show, yeah, so you have to differentiate.
Yeah, he's in so much.
Yeah, and so many things that you've probably seen him in as well.
Yeah.
I like him a lot as an actor.
Billy, let me tell you haven't seen America till you've seen it from a train.
Damn it, Mulder, what happened?
All right, now it's time for our overall thoughts.
Yay!
I mean, they tie together because the main characters are doing things that their bosses are like, don't do.
Yeah, it was funny watching the whole Trek episode until I was like, I'm sure it's going to be the Prime Directive, but there was a while where I was like, what rule is he breaking exactly? And then once it was like, fuck that. Well, no, it's like, but he was breaking it in the same way he always breaks it, so that made me wonder why you picked it, because it's just like because general.
Sometimes he breaks it and you're like, I can kind of see the argument.
Yeah, that's,
this
yes.
one I can't see the argument for why he breaks it. And Spock even is like, because even Spock sometimes is like, yeah, fuck this planet, whatever. But this one is like, no, nothing bad is happening to these people, and they are genuinely happy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, something bad is happening to us, but we came to this place.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they destabilized their entire planet, and there was nothing wrong in this planet.
Totally. Once it got to, oh, this is definitely what's happening, it was like, oh, I see why you picked this episode. Sure, that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, all captains really play fast and loose with the Prime Directive, which, like, kind of makes sense.
You have to, right?
You're, like, in the field and, like, you're in charge of 400 plus people. Like, you know, you can make some calls.
Yep. No, I totally agree. And, like, this is Mulder being Mulder, but the reason I picked it is because of the train jump. Like, we've already seen the gondola, so, like, this also felt like you've seen Mulder break the rules. Now you're gonna watch Mulder, like, break a lot of rules. None that involve going to Russia, which does happen a couple times, but, like, there's a lot of choices. And especially to be told by Skinner right to your face, you have to fucking go home.
Clean your own mess up. I'm not cleaning this one up.
We didn't talk about this when we were talking about this episode, but I love that when Skinner leaves, he just shoulder checks Mulder, like, get the fuck out of my way. Very Skinner move.
Very tired of his bullshit.
Yeah, exactly. So there you go. They both tie together because they both fit the theme, because we're good at doing the themes by now.
Superfan questionnaire. As a superfan, would this episode be on your must-watch list?
I don't know. There's a lot of tropes inside this. It's not really bad. There's not anything that I would be like, I don't necessarily want to show somebody this. I feel like it probably would. If you gave me like a top 10, I would probably put it on there. I love the Technicolor. I like that there's a lot of crew stuff going on. Like, it hits my specific buttons about what I like a lot. And so, yeah, if I could give someone like a 10, this would probably be on there. Maybe at 10, but yeah, probably I would.
No.
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense. There's better mythology episodes. Just show them the stunts and the train car exploding, which is pretty cool.
Also, this question isn't must-watch list for other people. It's my, like, must-watch list, and I'm not watching.
Oh, I assumed I was making a top 10 list to give to somebody.
No, this is
Why would I'll give who cares? I can just put it on random. I don't give a shit.
There's got to be episodes that you're like, ooh, I love this one.
Yeah, alternative factor.
Oh my god, that's insane. That episode is bad. Is there a series-defining moment in this episode?
I mean, the whole episode is series-defining stuff, like you
It's
said.
not the question.
But no, it is. That's the whole thing. Is there's red shirts exploding. There's Shatner doing the Shat thing. There is in like the whole of the crew working together. The Enterprise is at stake. There's a lot of like on bridge moving around. I feel like there's a lot of series defining stuff. Like you said, people look at this and you see us still from it, and you're like, that's Star Trek. So I feel like the whole episode supports the like fandom and the greater canon of Star Trek.
Probably Mulder almost dying, but somebody saving him while he was knocked out.
Important that he's knocked out.
Yeah.
Got the shit beaten out of him.
He would have died, but somebody came in and saved him. And that feels like his whole thing.
Yeah.
His whole oeuvre. Does this affirm your OTP?
Of Kirk and the Enterprise? Yes, it does.
Great.
It sure does.
I could say this is season 3, so it's still very like, and they're like arguing a lot in this one. Mm-hmm. And they're like, you're wrong. No, I'm wrong. So like, I don't think it's I think it's good character growth for them, but I don't think it's particularly shippy.
I can see that. There's a couple times where they're like close talking and Mulder's like gazing at her, but like part of this episode, right, is that Scully's totally disconnected from people lusting after her in these moments.
Yeah. Is this a fuck fine or a flop?
I don't know. Part of it, okay, I would say that it's a fuck, maybe a lower fuck, because we had such a good discussion about it, but like, it's a weird episode also, but I don't think it's just a fine. It's beautiful. That's part of it. So like, yes, it's a fuck, but not for the. Not, if I told you it was a fuck, you'd be like, oh, these kind of things. That's not necessarily why I feel that way about it. I just think it's very well done. What about you?
Fine.
Yeah.
Whatever. These are very whatever episodes to me.
Mm-hmm. That's why I was like, we could just watch one, but you kind of do need both of them.
Yeah, when there's a to be continued, you kind of.
You gotta.
All right, that's it. That's the episode.
Woohoo! You can find us on the internet. Follow us at NYD Productions on Instagram and interact with the show using the hashtag XTrexPod. You can find me at NYD on Instagram.
You can find me on Blue Sky, Tumblr, and Instagram at Stella Cheeks.
You can find me on Instagram at FisterRoboto83. You can also find me on our company's monthly newsletter at nydproductions.beehive.com. That's BEEHIIV.com. We give updates as to what's going to come out that month, things we're watching, listening to, working on in our own personal lives, and just like checking in with everybody.
You can also email us at xtrexpod@gmail.com with questions or comments. I don't know. I feel like we keep watching episodes where they're on a planet and there's lots of outdoorsy survival stuff. And so this joke is old, but like I do have a lot of those fics. Like they're stranded on a planet and they have to like interact with the locals, or they're like stuck in a cave, or, they're poisoned by a plant. Like that is a trope for a reason. Like stranded tropes are a reason. But like there's nothing in this episode that I was like, ooh, funny fic joke.
Fair.
A great way to read fics that Stella has in her back pocket that we are now making Erin read and live react to at times is our company Discord, where we do stuff like that in book clubs and memeing and so many side discussions about any kind of fandoms.
I don't know what one to give her because she thinks 5,000 words is long.
Whatever.
But that is a free open Discord that if you want an invite to, just let us know. Contact us on any of our social medias or email us, and we'd be happy to invite you there as well. But if you would like even more than that, things like episode notes, which we were referring to while recording this, outtakes, extra podcasts like unofficial channels, then please go to our Patreon at patreon.com/NYDProductions, where you can find all of that and more for at least $1, and also just like feel really good about supporting us.
Yeah, for real. We love you guys. And don't forget to subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts and to tell your friends. We find that this nerdy shit is better when it's shared.
We'll see you next episode for Mass Hysteria. In the meantime,
believe boldly.
Seek truth.
Ship proudly.
X-Trex is created and written by Stella Cheeks, Erin Cline, and Bobby Hoffman, and produced by Bobby Hoffman for NYD Productions. Our show theme is Alien Spy by Ionix, and our show art was made by Jonathan Curtis.